Want to become a supporting member of Radio Artifact? More information can be found at www.patreon.com/Radio Artifact.
You're listening to Out Cincinnati. In case you didn't realize, this month is huge for the cannabis industry, everything related. And every year on April 20th, it's a cannabis celebration. The LGBTQIA plus community has a long history of involvement in the industry, so I wanted to reach out and learn a little bit more about that. Olivia Alexander, also known as the Kush Queen, which I love. I'm thinking of stealing it for a drag name. She doesn't know that yet. Joins us on the program. Thanks for being here. Happy 420.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy 420.
Thank you. So it's on the top of my mind. It's on the top of everybody's mind. Are you stuck at home with this virus stuff?
Yeah, I've actually been on lockdown and work from home for over a month since March 11th. We were really early, and there's no need for me and a number of people who can work from home. And then we have a small crew who has been continuing to work because California deemed cannabis essential, which is incredible. And so we are really busy, actually. And there's just been so many people who cannabis is their medicine, and this is really how they're coping right now, especially with self-care. And I myself have been using tons of cannabis as well at home to sort of deal with all of this, but we've been really lucky, and I'm really grateful. I've been importing PPE for some hospitals in Louisiana. We've been shipping out care packages to frontline fighters. You can nominate a frontline fighter on our website. And also we've been bottling hand sanitizer for people as well, just because we have access to bottling lines and bottles. And so we just been trying to do our part and, really be good humans like everybody, I hope, is being as well.
Are people following the kind of guidelines where you are, or do you have the impression in California in general, people are kind of sticking with it until we're out of the woods?
Yeah, I feel like I've never ever seen it be so, the freeways are so quiet. It's so quiet other than sirens, unfortunately. And then everyone's wearing masks. We've been all masked up for a good period. And even at, I haven't gone, but I've sent my fiance to replenish our groceries. And at Costco, he was saying that they were like cleaning the handles in between people touching them. So I feel like we're making progress here. I don't know about other places, but I can only speak from my experience, and everyone's been respecting it. And there was this genuine feeling in the air the last day that I went out. And I hate to say this, but people were scared. And I think the fear has helped us in California a little bit. So I'm just hoping, that people are staying home if they can.
I'm so glad that your business is deemed essential. I don't know in Ohio. I'm assuming in Ohio that it's just medical in Ohio, the marijuana, and that they're probably still essential. But that is so great that you're able to, kind of, because you service dispensaries there in California, right? That's where people can find your products retail.
Yeah, so Kush Queen, actually, we have a dual approach. So we sell compliant products in California in the regulated markets, so in all of the licensed dispensaries. And then we sell hemp products online. It's two separate facilities, and basically the difference is like a regulatory body. The state of California has the BCC. And then the hemp products, we follow the same, dosing formulas. It's a bit different packaging and made in different locations, but we basically, we service both sides. And so we're still on the shelves, and the dispensaries are doing like curbside delivery. And then we've been shipping online. We ship all over the United States and are starting actually to test the UK. So, really just trying to reach people all over with the products and our message.
How do you stand out in the CBD space? And I want you to get into, Olivia, like, what does CBD do? Because, I drive around where I live and the gas stations sell it. So, and I'm not comparing anything to anything. It's just, what does CBD do and how do you stand out?
Well, first and foremost, CBD is a molecule derived from either a cannabis plant or a hemp marijuana plant, which the difference is really the presence of THC. Just like a person has DNA, the plant has a DNA. It has, different parts of it. And CBD is one part. It's one of many molecules. We know there are over 100, and they're discovering new ones every day.
Wow.
And so those molecules actually interact with a system inside of our body called the endocannabinoid system. It directly communicates to our central nervous system. And that's why people feel better. It's because it's regulating your most important body functions, your sleep, your mood, your appetite. They're all tied to those systems. And so we talk about CBD because CBD is what's booming. It's what's changing people's minds. It's what's, got us this forward momentum in the mainstream media and with, people everywhere. But all of these molecules that we're talking about are cannabinoids. And that's really what is important, is that we're talking about cannabinoids. And there are different types of CBD. There's full spectrum, there's broad spectrum. That means, does it have THC? Does it not have THC? There's CBD derived from a full grown plant. And then there's molecules that you can create in a lab with organic chemistry. And I guess it leads me to how I decipher myself and my brand, which is, I started behind the counter of a dispensary when I was 18 years old.
Get out. Okay.
Was selling weed to people as soon as I started smoking it at 18. And then I, sold weed to my soccer mom friends and went to dispensaries when they first opened and always had a medical card, because cannabis has been the number one constant in my mental health. I always knew something was like wrong with me, but I didn't know what. I couldn't put my nail on it because mental health is like almost one of the hardest things to get the right diagnosis. And this mental health system doesn't really exist in the world in the way that it should, in my opinion. And so when I discovered cannabis, that was when I could sleep. I had struggled with insomnia. I had struggled with all of these different symptoms of what is traditional bipolar disorder. But even now, I just use cannabis, and I don't advocate that just for everyone, but it's how I choose to live, and it's just enriched my life so much. So cannabis is a part of me. It's a part of my life. It's a part of everything that I do. And so I started a company called the Crystal Colts, Swarovski Crystal Vapes, really early vape days. And then I discovered that essentially you could smoke weed in them, and that's when cartridges came on the market. So I crystallized them and people loved them. I built the business through Instagram. And then after owning that company for a little bit, I grew the following on Instagram, and other cannabis companies wanted to hire me to do their social media content to help them, tell their story. And I did that for many years. I ran a huge network of Instagram pages, got deleted by Instagram because cannabis is actually prohibited content, especially when I was posting it, 5-7 years ago. And then when my whole world was basically like crumbling and I lit my house on fire by getting all these pages deleted, I really put all my energy into Kush Queen. Kush Queen started as a vape and t-shirt sold by the Crystal Cult. And then I just had this realization one day that vapes couldn't make people's lives better, and maybe they made people sick. Even like really early, I started to feel like, whoa, something's not right here. And that's when I started selling CBD products. I just wanted to sell something that made people feel better, and it made me feel better. And I love cannabis, and it just sort of naturally progressed for me. So I've been in this a long time. It's my undying passion, and I love spreading the message of this plant to the world. And it may not be for everyone. And I just try to be a good shepherd of the message and like lift the plant up in this way that I like worship her. And so I think my experience and my passion helps me stand out. And then, I'm just who I am. And I think that like when you stand in your ultimate unicorn sparkle, when you just shine and you say like, I don't really care about what other people are doing. Like I do, trust me. Like it's a phrase you say, but you don't at the same time. And I've always just been like, I have to change the world. Like I'm not kidding. Like, I've just always been like, the world has to change. I grew up in like rural Louisiana, small town, 700 people, absolutely nothing, in like crushing environmental pollution, hatred, bigotry, racism, murder, you name it, like horrible town.
Probably homophobia too. I'm not making a comment. I'm just
No,
guessing.
100%. And my brother,
Okay.
gay. He was a gay little boy in this shit town in Louisiana, and it was not fun even for me as just his sister, because I was his protector, and I'm a scrappy bitch. Like, I'll take the gloves off and we'll go, so we luckily, like, I was in pageants and dance competitions, and my mom said we got to get the hell out of here. And so I've always had that energy, and I bring that energy to my life every day, and I'm just like, I think I'm a star and life is my movie, and I just keep like going with it. And so Kush Queen is just, it's an expression of all of that. And I stay in my own lane, and I'm lucky I was early. And I just, like, honest to God, I'm a person of integrity and just try to be, give people a brand that they deserve.
Right. I want to remind folks we're listening to Out Cincinnati. We're talking to the Kush Queen, Olivia Alexander. You can find out more information at kushqueen@cannabis.com. You mentioned your brother, and we're talking about cannabis, talking about LGBT plus community. So your brother's the LGBT community. What's kind of his story, and how was that for him in Louisiana?
Oh, tough time, but we moved to LA when I was 13 and he was like 10. So we did get out. And then, you're like living in LA, and my cousin, my first cousin, she's also married to a woman, and that woman is my CMO of the company. And then we have many people, at our company who identify as LGBTIA. And I always tell people, I'm like, we've been through it. Like, I have been through it with my brother. I've been through it with my family. When my cousin went to get married in Alabama, someone said to her, "Oh, well, women can't get married here."
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, so I've been through it, but it was actually the morning of Orlando. We marched the parade with these signs that said, like, I'm a cannabis patient. And I was out there. I've been in the parade before. Like, I've just always, like, the community is, in my opinion, like, I'm a part of it. And, like, everything that I've been through with my family, I always tell people, like, pride is not a season for us. Like, this is just who we are. And it's who we are all the time. And equality is one of, like, the biggest things it's like a pillar of my company and a part of my life. And there's just too much injustice in the world, and I've only experienced a fuck taste as a white woman, a little taste. But I try to be hyper conscious, and I try to think about other people's experience. I'll never forget, I'm at the Cannabis Cup. I'm like really young, just starting my brand, and someone came up to me and they were like, you have the word girl on your lit kit, and I'm not a girl, and I don't identify as a girl, and I need you to take it off.
Oh, so what happened there?
I took it off because it changed my mind, Like, I was like, you're right. Like, I don't need gender. I don't need that, even though my brand is called Kush Queen, and people sometimes want to say, like, oh, that's a girlfriend product or whatever. I just, and that's when we really started to, like, just try to drive forward inclusivity. And then, people forget that we have legal cannabis because of the community. The LGBTIA community gave us legal cannabis. The man who wrote Proposition 215, which ushered in medical marijuana in California, was Dennis Perone. And Dennis Perone,
yes,
he was a shepherd of Harvey Milk. And there was also early decriminalization legislation in 79 in San Francisco. And then here comes, the AIDS epidemic. And it was off of the backs of, this epidemic that, we got medical. And it was 1996. Like, this is a part of, like, the literal history of cannabis and the history of the community. And so I've always just been trying to, hold my boot to people's neck and make sure they remember, because it's really, really important, not just to the community, but to cannabis.
You know what I love is the story of Brownie Mary, and because you mentioned Dennis with the cannabis brown. What was that story? She was a
Yes.
volunteer, right?
Yes. So Mary Rathburn, she was volunteering at the hospital, and they also consider the first dispensary ever in the country to be the San Francisco Buyers Club. Like it was basically a buyers club. Like it was so crazy, and she would make brownies. That's why Mary Rathburn is known as Brownie Mary, and she would make brownies and she'd bring them, through the ward at the hospital. And I literally I get the chills every time, I can honor their spirit, because it's like there was so many other people, those are like the two big figures, but it's it's always something people like celebrate during Pride, but I think it's also important that we just start celebrating it on 422, because 420 is such like a weird thing for people like myself, who I'm a stoner, but I'm like completely not a stoner, if that makes any sense.
So how were you a stoner?
Well, I'm a stoner in the traditional, like, let's define it way, which is I smoke weed or I use cannabis all the time, day in, day out, morning, noon, night. Sometimes I'm smoking it. Sometimes I'm using it in lotions, in the bath. I'm doing tinctures. I'm always experimenting with different doses and different products, and always trying to maximize my wellness with the cannabinoid molecules in the plant.
So how are you not a stoner?
What I feel like a stoner is like the 18 to 35-year-old, like high times bro who smokes weed. And I've always been, the antithesis of that. And I'm glam and all these other things that I don't think people think are stoners. But I think that's part of like what I've been trying to do, is just like kind of, flip that and make space and celebrate people who just like love the plant and are themselves, because I think that's what it also brings me, and that's what I hope that it brings to others, is like this plant. It helps you like unlock things inside of yourself, insecurity or even nerves sometimes, and it really just like lets you flow in this energy that is hopefully like your truest self, because that's what's like the most important thing.
And that's what I'm gonna say, that I am a medical cannabis patient, and a lot of creativity, a lot of work, a lot of just projects, ideas, a lot of sanity comes from the use of cannabis. And so I'm not thanking anybody. I'm just saying I agree with you as far as some of the ideas I have, I wouldn't have had without that, that bowl that I smoked, or whatever the case may be. So, where are we with cannabis access, really? I know in California right now it's essential with the virus and everything, and just in normal times, like, are we really as far ahead as we think we are? Do we have a long road to go?
I mean, I guess it depends on where you live. Unfortunately, I think that the situation with federal legalization is a lot farther than people think. I mean, the more states that come on with medical and recreational, the closer we do get. But I mean, look back at how long it took us to get gay marriage. Like, that's a long time. People were fighting. Like, it's crazy. Like, so I always tell people, like, it's up to people to get active in their state, in their location, and be a part of organizations that are working on local legislation and statewide legislation. Like, that's what we did in California. And for me personally, my privilege is living here and getting to live in this future world where it's regulated. It's almost safer. Not almost, it is safer than products in the supermarket because of the way that it's tested. It's track and trace from seed to sale. Like, we follow the craziest tests and the craziest regulations, and I will do it over and over again because I know it protects people, and I'm here to prove, to the government, to the regulators, that the harm really isn't there with this plant and these products. And always protect kids, but I think that we have another 5 to 10 years. I think obviously like the virus is changing everything, and like what this is going to do to the economy, we might have a fighting chance. But we're living in an alternate universe right now politically. There's like more polarity than I've ever experienced in my life. And I was in
even out there in California,
the Bush administration. Yeah, out here in California.
Okay.
I live in Orange County now. Orange County is one of those places that has been able to have much, much better cannabis rules. So in the city of Costa Mesa, we actually, they lowered the tax there. Some amazing women that manufacture in the city of Costa Mesa got them to lower the tax. The taxes are still really high in California on cannabis. But basically, they lowered the tax there. I moved to Orange County, and, I literally saw someone in my neighborhood with a Trump sticker, and I'm like, what the hell? I live in California. I got to get back to LA. But, you know, um, there are people everywhere who have these archaic beliefs and who just believe something different than I do and different than a lot of people. And I just think that the polarity right now politically it's just everywhere. I don't think you can avoid it anymore, like even being in California.
Right, and I've noticed, you go around in our city of Cincinnati, you get a bit of everything everywhere. And you're listening to Out Cincinnati. We're speaking to Olivia Alexander, the Kush Queen. You can see more about her products, what she's up to, kushqueencannabis.com. I want to ask you what your take was when that whole E-Valley, E-Vape related illness stuff came out. Were you surprised?
Honestly, no. I mean, I don't know if people want to hear this because vapes are massively popular, and that even vaping cannabis oil is really popular. But long-term vaping and long-term chronic use of vapes, even cannabis vapes, can come with negative side effects for people. Same with smoking.
Oh,
You can't say it anyway. That's just the truth. Then you have bad players and everything. You have people who want access to vape products because of its discreetness. They can't get them. People cutting the oil with chemicals. Well, of course you're going to get a hole in your lung. Vape-related illness, I believe, was real. I think that it's actually happened mostly in unregulated black market places, but I think that there's just even a portion of the consumer base who can't use just vapes, period, even like legally regulated ones in California. Like my publicist, she was hitting a vape for a while, and she was like, I just like immediately got bronchitis. And like also myself, like I can hit vapes, but I can only hit a certain type of vape, and they can't have terpenes in them. Like even natural cannabis derived terpenes. Terpenes are the scent from the plant, and our scents in general. So the plant has terps when it's extracted and they put it in the cartridge. Some people also add terps to the vape to make it more flavorful. And like, oh my God, my allergies are so sensitive to it that I'll cough and cough and cough and cough and cough, and it's no good. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised, but I just tell people that for me personally, where cannabis is a medicine is when I put it on my skin or when I eat it. Even smoking it, I love a joint. I love, love, love a joint. But it's not medicine. You're even just treating a symptom. So you smoke a joint for your nausea. It's not going to heal it. You've got to get the cannabis inside of your body if you really want it to be healed. And again, it doesn't work for everyone, and it doesn't cure everything. I tell people that more than anything because people, they get angry when it doesn't work for them. But all I can say is hang on. We're working on technology that is going to read your genome. And if we can get access to your genome and we can give you free cannabis products and, monitor people, study people with different illnesses and symptoms that, have positive results from cannabis, we can get more information. And remember that, like, someone said something to me the other day about like medical journals. And I was like, medical journals haven't studied cannabis products, especially the way
they haven't been allowed to.
Exactly. I was so outraged. I was like, we're not talking about medical journals right now, honey. So, yeah, it is what it is. And I just don't, I always advise people, you have your freedom of choice. Like that's one thing cannabis is about. It's about you choosing what you want as an adult. But if we're talking, honest science, straight talk, that's what it is.
Well, how do you, I'm thinking about this as a medical cannabis patient myself. We're celebrating 420, and I smoke often and I vape and I try to mix it out, but it gets expensive to find out what works for you. And I know there's no solution, but I mean, maybe there is a solution. Or is there a way to let people who, and this isn't my example, but maybe people who are low income, who are on Medicare, Medicaid, to have access to cannabis?
I mean, we have to keep fighting for it. The rules are different everywhere. I always tell people, like, if you live in a medical state or you're fighting for legislation where you locally live, like, fight for the ability to grow at home. You know, I literally am looking at like 6 plants I have in my backyard. And that is something that I think is so important, that people try to grow the plant themselves. They try to have a relationship with it. It really changes, you know, the way that you see it and experience it. You can make butter from it. You can make tinctures from it. You know, I try to tell people, like, touch this plant, like, not just in the way that you smoke it, in the way that people think you use cannabis. Like, try to grow some of it. It's like amazing. It's like growing a garden at your house. It's so fun. And yeah, and like, just pay attention, because the problem with cannabis is that it's going to the 1%, just like everything else. Unfortunately, these companies basically fund legalization while they're, you know, sucking up interest in the legal market, and then they're making it so felons can't be in the legal market, and they're making it harder for women and LGBTIA people. Like, you know, equity issues are huge in cannabis, especially with the war on drugs, and people have got to be conscious. You know, it's really about that first, because a lot of this is just like happening under people's noses while they're just too busy out there trying to survive.
Is it like I've seen in movies and television where politicians who were locking people up for busting them for an eighth, 5 years ago, are now getting into it for the big money aspect? I don't know. Maybe John Boehner might be an example. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I know him. All kinds of people, like people who just like didn't fight for it, like not just people like that who are double dipping, but just straight profiteers, you know, like it's hard for me because I have a brand now and I can't sort of call people out as much as I used to when I was just an influencer, even though I still do, like, I still try to hold my boot to people's neck, even though like it puts a huge target on my back and people like send me so much hate and try to drag me and try to trap me up and like all these things. But it's important that people ask, like, who owns this company? What are they doing? Like, we don't do that enough with everything because we don't have the time and the privilege, some of us. But the people who do, especially, like, think about where your money is going and then try to get involved, like, especially with weed. Like, you may not be into politics, you may not be into organizing, like, you may not be into these things, but maybe you're just into weed. Like, use that, you know, because even if we just change a couple laws here and there, I do really believe they're going to eventually have to stop locking people up for cannabis. And the biggest thing that's still happening is that it's like, it's really the biggest injustice of all of this is that, and the COVID virus has really made me think about it a lot, is that because I tried to get masks to people in prison and like, you can't, like, it has to go through Unicor. Like, I reached out to Dr. Dina, and I was like, how do we do this? Because she's like always really involved with like tons of people inside, you know, for cannabis. And I just keep thinking, like, why is it okay for us to be in this legal market being deemed an essential business? I'm out here, like, frankly, like, sadly thriving in this pandemic because people need this medicine so badly. I always don't know how to feel about it. But that's why I just try to give as much as I can, because it's like the only way. And
so you couldn't get those masks into the prison because they had to be like government masks?
Yeah. And this is like, and she said, like, don't worry, like, they're okay. Like, they're really, really like crafty. She's like, they need the money on their commissary. They can only get $25. Like, that's what they really need. And so, but basically, yeah, like, it's just such a crazy thing, and we have got to end the war on drugs, and we have got to fix the social justice system in this country. It's like the most imperative thing besides climate change. And then, like, obviously, like, stopping the government from being run by corporations. You know, like, I think people think that cannabis is just like an industry, and it is for some people, but for people like me, like, it really is a form of activism still. And we have got to do everything we can every single day to change these systems, because they really do fucking hold so many people.
Amen. And I have two weed pot related questions left, and then I want to ask if you've watched Tiger King. We're talking to Olivia Alexander, the Kush Queen, KushQueenCannabis.com. No, but seriously, what kind of a cartridge? And I'll say the cartridge is what holds the oil that heats up in the vape pen for folks who, have never used one. What do you usually, when you vape, use, or what do you usually smoke when you smoke? Are you sativa or indica?
Indica for sure. I'm not a huge sativa fan. Gives me a lot of anxiety.
Same.
And, let's see. I like to smoke flower, like joints. I have a really cool vape called a Mighty, which it vapes the dried flower, and I just love it. The terps, the flavor. It feels good in my lungs. I obviously use my bath bombs like crazy, my pain melt like crazy. I love edibles. I love Smokies gummies, like a 10 milligram gummy. It's just so good. It gives you a nice high, but nothing, that's going to at least for me, that's the thing. A dose is different for everyone.
It's not going to tank your day at that dose, and you found what's appropriate for you. So it's
for me. I love edibles, like non-smokables. I mean, I do vapes. I do a brand out in California called Friendly Farms. They have a live resin cartridge that is delicious. It's just pure cannabis really in a cartridge, and it was really well done and really cleanly extracted flower.
And what is it called?
It's Friendly Farms, and there's Gelinade and a number of other strains like Forbidden Fruit that I love. But I'm really I'm a connoisseur when it comes to flowers. So I love finding either the freshest flower you can find, or people who are growing at home, or super small boutique grows. I think that just wine and other sort of crafts, there are people who are doing stuff that's just it's the highest form of the art when it comes to the flower. And so I love really dope flower. One of my first clients was a company called Northern Emeralds. Their flower is just so beautiful, so tasty, and clean, but
it sounds delicious. The name, I want to go look that up.
I don't dab anymore because I'm going on 14 years of smoking. So that's a lot on your lungs. So that's why I do more edibles and do more topicals now. But I smoke a joint or two a day. And it really just depends on my lifestyle, my stress level, how much time I have. But I've also experimented with crazy things that people are trying to create in the industry, early day products, early day dabs were called earwax. One time I remember the first person came along with a breath strip that was infused with THC. Crazy.
Wow.
I snorted.
I think I've seen those. Snorted.
Yeah. Powdered nano THC.
I've heard of that. That's what goes into drinks, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. Wow. There's such a world out there. In dabbing, we were talking about how it can kind of get your lungs. That's at really high temperatures, and it's concentrates, right? It you kind of fire it and hit it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Just so folks have an idea. So Tiger King. I'm watching Tiger King. I'm in quarantine. Oh, well, not quarantine. I just say that because it's one of the bigger words I know. But I'm in quarantine with my mom, and we're watching Tiger King. And last night he had the blow-up doll and the whole 9 yards, and I can't even. Are you watching that?
Yeah, I already watched it.
Okay, so does it get crazy? Or?
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I mean, I'm not the same as everybody else, who picked a side. I think they're all fucked up, but I just also can't believe that I have a dog that costs more than a tiger. I did not know tigers were so cheap. So there was just a that I had where I was what the hell is this? But I mean, truly one of the twistiest, turniest things I've ever seen. And I mean, it just goes to show how crazy the world is right now, that's what took off.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching that, and then I'm trying to finish Netflix, and I know there's a lot of cool apps out there, and folks should read a book too, as well. Hey, I really appreciate during this quarantine time, and this is out Cincinnati. I really appreciate the time. Oh, by the way, since I was just going to tell folks how to find you on social, I want to know what the story was about the Instagram accounts and how they got shut down. And like, tell me as much as you can, because I tried to find a couple of them that were in your bio, and I'm like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. So,
Like, I know that's random last question, but like,
it's a really long story, but I used to run a lot of Instagram pages. BuzzFeed is the only one I still have. I had one called Eat Weed Love, one called Weed.photography, one called Weed.bay. Basically a network of like 10 pages. I had one called Weed Quiero, like all these different pages, perspectives on weed that lived on Instagram. They're like properties. I sold ads way before Instagram for business. And then I used them to grow the feeds of cannabis companies that were my clients. And then I made content all day long, memes, did photo shoots, made videos, all kinds of stuff, because I have a YouTube channel as well, BuzzFeed. And then basically I kept getting deleted because anyone can report anyone back in those days. And then eventually they were just like, it was so hard to keep my pages up. I went looking to pay someone to protect me. And then
and let me ask you, just sorry, why were they reporting? Because people don't know, people get really bent out of shape when you post an actual picture of marijuana. Was that the problem?
I don't know. Yes, probably people who just like don't like weed, people who probably were people who didn't like me, people who like when you have really big pages, like it's a common problem. People like report people and stuff. And then basically I thought that I was getting help, but then after I uncovered how many people I the people who were us were the people who were charging us to be reactivated. It's quite a scam. I paid over $25,000. And then they took my pages away right before Instagram for Business launched, and they vacation for a few years. I finally got it, but it's like,
Wow.
Don't pay people like corporations. They frown upon it. They're terrified of being right.
Because you can't.
They know.
Yeah. Well, you can grow that from scratch, right? Like you don't need a company. Because you've totally done that with your social presence.
I mean, I don't think you can anymore. Like, I hate to I mean, you can go their followings all the time. People come on scene all the time. That's authenticity, it's talent, it's originality, it's a whole bunch of things, but it's really hard nowadays to like do that and make money on Instagram. But especially that's you pay Instagram now ads, that's what they want you to do. So it's definitely the whole social media thing. I don't want to say it's dead. Like COVID's really revived it. Like engagement is up like crazy on all the apps, because I'm ready for in what is like social media to us, and I don't know what that is. It's not definitely TikTok for me. Like TikTok's just too for me and not like media enough. Like I need my social media app to have some soul.
Yeah, I'm not even on TikTok. It's just videos, right?
Maybe a good old fashioned community. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. Hey, I really appreciate the time. KushQueenCannabis.com. You can find all the social media there. The Liv Alexander, Twitter, Instagram, Olivia Liv Alexander on Facebook. Happy 420, and hey, I love the crystal, the Swarovski pens. I just am in love.
Oh, well. Thank you. I do appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me. This was really fun, and happy 420, everybody.
Hi, this is Judy Collins, and you're listening to Out Cincinnati.